Hi everybody, my name's Andrew and today I'm driving a Ford Maverick. Until 2020, at least in recent history, the only unibody pickup on sale in the US was the Honda Ridgeline, a truck that, despite some clever design touches and Honda's reliable 3.5-liter V6 engine, was never really viewed particularly favorably. Then in 2020, of course, Jeep launched the Gladiator, but that was really more of a mid-size truck than what buyers were really wanting, which was a small unibody pickup. A true entry-level, more affordable option compared to really just how big trucks have gotten these days, and really how expensive as well. Then in late 2021, both Ford and Hyundai, of all people, decided to do exactly that. And here you are, the Maverick, as well as, of course, the Hyundai Santa Cruz. Now, in theory, this really just sits in the spot of the old Ranger, because in the late 90s and early 2000s, the Ranger was pretty much the affordable entry-level small pickup. But as with everything, the Ranger is now a mid-size, along with the Tacoma, and starts from $35,000, give or take, for a base model. This truck is in the mid-20s, which is pretty much unheard of today, and it's honestly also a really good truck, even though it's really cheap. So in this video, I'm gonna give you guys a quick walk around of it, take it for a drive, and tell you what I think. That Ridgeline that I just mentioned, to put things into context here, in the last 20 years, since roughly 2005, Honda has sold about 500,000 Ridgelines, which seems like a good number until you realize that the Maverick, since the end of 2021, so about 3 years, has sold almost 300,000. Of course, the Jeep Gladiator has been pretty popular too, or at least it was initially, but really just by Jeep people, not really by truck people. This is actually popular with truck people, I think, or at least people that wouldn't necessarily be truck people, but kind of need a pickup for once in a while and don't really want to spend 50 grand on a base F-150 or something like that. But anyway, the Hyundai Santa Cruz has also roughly matched the Ridgeline's sales figures, but I think that's really just due to production. Ford has been absolutely cranking these things out the last few years because they can, and clearly they're doing well with it. As I said before, the Maverick is unibody, which means that it actually rides on essentially the same platform as the Ford Escape and the Bronco Sport that I reviewed recently. Now, technically, in that sense, that means it's actually not really a truck, but I would argue, and I will, that there's actually really no negatives to that in this case. Ford has certainly put effort into engineering the Maverick to be a truck. For one thing, even though the bed is on the smaller side at 54.4 inches or just over 4.5 feet long, it's been very thoughtfully designed to enable it to be way more practical than you might think. For one, you can actually unhook the support straps for the tailgate and lock them into this higher position here, meaning that the tailgate is now, the top of it is now level with the wheel wells. So you can stably and easily carry 4x8 sheets of plywood out the back and have them be perfectly level. Also, speaking of wood, there are a number of indents right here, as you can see on either side of the bed, and those are designed to perfectly fit 2x4s across, so you can DIY your own sort of shelf or bed divider solution if you feel like it. And length aside, the specs back here are actually fairly impressive because the payload of this Maverick is 1,500 pounds, which is actually more, fun fact, than an F-150 Raptor, and only a few pounds shy of the four-door Tacoma and Ranger. And if you equip the 4K tow package back here, as the name suggests, you can tow up to 4,000 pounds, which is honestly plenty for most people. Moving up to the back seat of the Maverick, under here you'll find, just like an F-150, under-seat storage bins, although of course naturally scaled down slightly. Back here you'll also find a number of these sort of T-shaped holes throughout the cabin, and these are actually pretty clever. They are part of Ford's integrated tether system, or FITS for short. And Ford has made the geometry for these, the CAD files, completely publicly downloadable, meaning that if you have access to a 3D printer or know someone that does, you can 3D print any number of accessories to fit into these mounting points. Pun absolutely intended there. And I've seen things from extra cup holders to grocery bag hooks to holders for like a dog bowl. The possibilities are almost endless, and I think that's super cool that Ford is allowing that sort of DIY customization like that. The Maverick's entire cabin is decidedly budget friendly, but is quirky and cool enough to completely make up for that. As you can see over here on the door and dash panels, there are tons of harder plastic surfaces, but they are dressed up pretty nicely with a nice little pattern and texture there, so they both look and feel more premium. The door pulls are also, again, completely plastic, but Ford has been thoughtful and engineered, or not really engineered, but included a cutout right here so that you can fit, well, mine's too wide, but oh well, maybe. Nope, not quite. Anyway, in theory, you could fit taller water bottles in there, provided they are fairly skinny. The three-tone gray, black, and dark blue color scheme of the XL trim is also far more interesting than any other base model vehicle that I've been in recently. Higher trims offer brown or orange accents for even more flair. Speaking of it being the base XL, features in here are a little on the light side, but the basics, really everything most people need, is still here. You have cruise control, and with the Copilot 360 package, you get blind spot monitoring and lane keep assist as well. And of course, things like automatic LED headlights, Apple CarPlay, keyless entry, that sort of thing are all standard. There's no fancy heated or cooled seats, or even dual zone climate, or even a sunroof, or a sliding rear window, but there's plenty in here, honestly, at the end of the day. And actually, the XL's standard steel wheels get a huge thumbs up from me as well. But it is important to remember in here that the Maverick is a sub $30,000 pickup, especially this base XL form. And with the average new car transaction price being over $47,000 in the last few months, that is actually kind of refreshing and makes me appreciate the simplicity in here. Of course, some corners do have to be cut to get to that point, i.e. the cheaper materials in here, but overall this cabin does not feel like a penalty box. Behind the wheel, the Maverick is not dissimilar to a Ford Fusion sedan, and much like the Bronco Sport, that is a compliment once again, because again, this is a unibody truck. It's effectively a crossover underneath with a pickup bed on the back, and that's a great thing for the majority of people. And you know, in fact, I don't know anybody personally that buys a truck because they want it to ride poorly. I mean, you know, naturally, full-size, you know, half-ton or three-quarter-ton pickups do tend to ride a little bit on the firm side and a little bit on the bouncy side, just due to the way they're designed, being body on frame. But this feels just like a car, and that's great. That's what people want, because like I said before, this Maverick is probably primarily being bought by people that need a truck once in a while and can't justify spending crazy money for an F-150 or something like that. and again, don't really even have a need for an F-150 in the first place. So I think it's a great thing. I like the way this truck drives. I mean, well, again, truck in air quotes, pickup technically. The front seats are pretty comfortable. They're not super adjustable, but again, that's just because it's a base XL. And the driving position's good. You sit up pretty high. The hood is nice and square like the Bronco Sport, so you have a kind of commanding feeling of it. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. This particular Maverick is the 2-liter EcoBoost turbo 4-cylinder. Now, weirdly, when this truck came out, that was the upgrade option. The base powertrain was a 2.5-liter hybrid system. And at some point in the last few years, I don't really know when, Ford has flip-flopped that. And so if you go on the configurator now, the 2-liter is actually the entry-level option, even though it's more powerful and is more capable. But anyway, honestly, the hybrid drivetrain is where this truck really shines, in my opinion, and I'm kind of disappointed that this one is not the hybrid, but I have driven it and really didn't have anything bad to say about it. It's kind of slow. This one is definitely pretty quick for a small pickup. It's 250 horsepower and 277 foot-pounds of torque, plus all-wheel drive and an 8-speed automatic. So I think the official 0 to 60 is a little over 6 seconds, but in testing, it's actually slightly under 6. It's a Turbo 4. It's got plenty of torque down low. It's not crazy turbo laggy, and it sounds kind of cool too. It's not very loud, but it's also unobtrusive, which is probably, again, what most buyers want anyway, to be fair. I am a little bit disappointed by the fuel economy of this truck, because with this 2-liter EcoBoost, you're really not going to get out of the high 20s in day-to-day driving, which, you know, comparatively, that's great. Again, compared to a Ranger even, or a F-150, that's great. But the 2.5-liter hybrid will easily do 40 mpg around town. And with the 2025 model year update, Ford has announced that the all-wheel drive system can now be paired with the hybrid. And ultimately, that just really seals the deal. I think the hybrid is probably the way to go. The only reason I could really justify getting this over the hybrid is, again, now cost, because for some reason this is the base powertrain now, and this will still tow more, because to my knowledge, the hybrid all-wheel drive with the update is still not going to get the max tow package. Regardless of which drivetrain you choose, however, either way, you really can't go wrong. This is a great little pickup, regardless of what's under the hood. Personally, you know, I would love to see a 2-door version with a longer bed, more akin to the old Ranger, but realistically, that's probably not going to happen, because most people do want 4 doors these days. Although, to be fair, I do think a 2-door version with a longer bed would do well with fleet sales. So that's just a thought. But anyway, this particular body style reminds me a lot of my old Subaru Baja, and for that reason, I love it as well. As always, I want to extend a huge thank you to Echo Park Raleigh for allowing me access not only to this Maverick, but their entire inventory of high-quality, reasonably priced, pre-owned vehicles. As always, you can check them out at echopark.com. I'll leave a link down below to this truck if it's still available. And thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, that was a lot to get out in one breath. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up, or consider subscribing for plenty more videos to come.